This here is a can of bear spray. I own it. It isn't for show, and I'm not about to stand here and mock it. There is country I will not walk into without one of these on my belt. Up where the berries come in thick in the fall, and I have handed one to more than one young man, and told him to keep it where he can reach it. Now here's the thing I want to sit down and tell you today, and I'm going to say it slow, because it is the truest thing I know about these woods. In all my years, of the people I have known of who went into country like this and did not come back out of it, not one was taken by anything with teeth. Not one. Every one of them died of something he did himself. And most of them died doing the very thing everybody in this country is told to do when things go wrong. They walked. There's a piece of arithmetic behind that. It's simple enough that a child could do it on his fingers, and I have never in my life heard anybody say it out loud around a fire. Once you've heard it, you will never think about being turned around in the woods the same way again, and you will understand why the old one's rule was the exact opposite of what your body will scream at you to do. I'll give it to you at the end. Stay for it. It's the whole video. My name is Tommy Whitehorse. I'm 66 years old, and I camp the same hills my grandfather camped, in about the same way he did. Most of what I've got came from him and from the old ones I sat beside at 100 fires, and not one of them ever wrote a word of it down. These things aren't secrets. They're just forgotten. And let me say plain what today is, because it isn't a skill video. There's no knot in it and no fire lay. Today is one decision. One. It's the decision you make in about the first 60 seconds after you realize you don't know where you are. And everything that happens to you after that is downstream of it. Now think about how we get ready to come out here. A man plans a trip and he thinks about the big animal. He reads about the big animal. He buys the spray, and maybe he buys the gun. And he lies in his tent at 11 o'clock at night, with his eyes wide open, listening to something snapping twigs out there in the dark. And what's out there is a raccoon working on his cooler, near about every time. I've got nothing bad to say about any of that. Being careful around big animals is good sense, and I'll teach it. But I want you to see the shape of it, because it's the whole trouble in one picture. Everybody prepares for the wrong death. That's the spine of this. The thing that actually empties a man out of these woods has no teeth at all. It doesn't stalk anybody, and it doesn't come in the night. It's a person walking, tired, sweating, sure that the truck is just over the next rise. That's it. That's the killer. And he's carrying bear spray while he does it. Now, I don't want any of what I say next to sound like I'm calling anybody a fool, because this is not stupidity. This is the most human thing there is. When you're lost, walking feels like progress. Standing still feels like surrender. Every hour you keep moving, some part of you is being paid. It feels like you're doing something about it. And sitting down on a log feels like admitting you're beaten. Nobody wants that. Nobody. And there's a worse trap in front of that one. People don't admit they're lost at the moment they get lost. That's the part nobody talks about. What actually happens is you get a funny feeling, and then you tell yourself you're nearly sure, and you push on for another hour to prove you were right. That hour is the one that costs you. Everything after that hour is expensive, and everything before it was free. So I'll say it now, and I'll say it again later. The moment to stop is the moment you first feel that cold drop in your stomach, not an hour after it. That drop is not weakness, that's your good sense arriving on time. And most men send it away. I know that feeling because I've had it, and I had somebody beside me the day I had it worst. I'd have been 22, up on a big rolling bench of country hunting grouse in November with an old fellow named Hollis Rand. Hollis was near 70, walked slow, and carried an old canvas coat he'd have been ashamed to be buried in. The fog came down on us about 2 in the afternoon, the way it does up there. Thick enough you couldn't see the end of a gun barrel, and inside of 20 minutes, I had no idea in this world which way we'd come. I started walking. I remember it plain. I was walking fast and talking fast and saying the truck was just below us. Just down this way, I was sure of it. And Hollis didn't come. He sat himself down on a windfall log, got out his tobacco, and let me get about 40 yards off before he said one word. He said, "Sit down, son. A lost man walking is just making the country bigger." I thought that was an old man being tired. I truly did. I sat down because he wasn't getting up and I wasn't going anywhere without him. And we sat on that log the better part of 2 hours, until the fog lifted enough to show us the ridge line, and the truck was a half-mile off, in almost the opposite direction from the one I was so sure about. It was years before I understood he hadn't said something wise to me. He'd said something literal. A lost man walking is making the country bigger, and there is a number attached to how much bigger, and I'll give you that number at the end. So here's the old sequence, and it's the same order they always use. First, you stop the second you doubt. Not when you're certain, because certain comes too late. Sit down. 10 minutes before you make any decision at all. 10 minutes. It sounds like nothing, and it is the hardest 10 minutes you will ever spend, because everything in you is standing up, wanting to go. But panic makes bad choices, and a man who has been sitting 10 minutes is a different animal from the man who's been running 10 minutes. 10 minutes costs you nothing, and it buys back the only tool you've got out here, which is the thing between your ears. Second, you think before you move a foot. When were you last truly certain of where you were? Not nearly sure. Certain. And what have you crossed since then? A creek? A fence line? A burned patch? A ridge? The sound of a road? Sit there and lay it out honestly. And I'll tell you what happens most of the time. Most people find out they are a great deal less lost than they feel. Feeling lost and being lost are two different sizes, and the feeling is always the bigger of the two. Third, and this one's the other half of the same myth, do not walk downhill just because it's easy. Everybody's heard follow the water down, and there's country where that's fine, and there's country where it will kill you. In broken ground, downhill funnels you into drainages, and drainages get you thick brush, deadfall, wet feet, and cliff bands you cannot see until you're standing on top of one. And here's the part that matters most. The bottom of a drainage is the single worst place on that whole mountain to be seen from the air. You've got timber over you and walls either side, and a helicopter passes a quarter-mile off and never knows you're alive. It's also the coldest place there is to spend a night, because cold air runs downhill like water and pools in the low ground. I told you that in the sleeping video, and it's just as true when you're lost as when you're comfortable. Fourth, and this is the part everybody skips, make yourself findable. That's an active job, and it's the one thing you actually do out there. If open ground is close and safe to reach, get to it. Then break up the shape of the country with something that does not belong in it. Nothing in these woods is bright orange. Nothing in these woods is a straight line. So put out bright color where it can be seen from above. Hang it in a tree, spread it on the ground. Build a fire, and once it's going strong, Throw green boughs on it, because green stuff makes thick white smoke, and white smoke on a gray hillside is visible for miles. And three of anything, three whistle blasts, three fires in a triangle, three shouts, three of any signal, spaced out with a rest between. Three is the old distress count, and it has been for longer than any of us have been alive. And the reason it works is nothing in nature repeats itself in threes on purpose. Three, says a person, did this, and sound will get you found where your eyes never will, because a searcher can be 100 yards off through thick timber and never see you. A whistle carries far past a shouting voice, and it costs you nothing to blow. A man shouting is worn out and hoarse in 10 minutes. A man with a whistle can signal all day and still have a voice in him. Fifth, take care of the body, and in the right order, because the order most people carry in their heads is upside down. Shelter and dry come first, warmth second, water after that, and food last, dead last, and it's the one everybody worries about first. A person can go a long while without eating. A person can go a very short while wet and cold. And that's the thread that runs under this whole video, so let me say it flat. Wet layers quit insulating. That was the whole lesson in the sleeping video. Insulation is nothing but trapped air, and water fills up the spaces the air was living in. A soaked shirt isn't warm clothing anymore. It's a cold rag stuck to you, pulling the heat out for as long as you leave it on. Sixth, once you commit to a spot, stay in it. This is the one that undoes rescues. A man sits 3 hours, gets restless, and moves a half-mile to what looks like better ground. Now he's scattered his sign in 2 places, and if anybody found the first one, they've got no reason to think he's not still near it. If you truly must move for shelter or for water, leave an obvious mark of where you went, an arrow of sticks and stones on open ground, big enough to see, something that is plainly man-made, because man-made is the only thing out here that stands out. Now, before I pay this off, some honest things, and I'll say them all flat. The first one is the exception, and I want to give it to you square, so none of this turns into dogma. There are times you should move. If nobody on this earth knows you went out and nobody is going to report you missing, then nobody is coming, and sitting still is just waiting quietly. If you can plainly see a road, a town, a lake with houses on it, and you can get there before dark, or if where you're standing is genuinely dangerous, a rockfall, a rising creek, no water anywhere, and none coming, then moving may well be the right call. But move deliberately, one direction chosen and held, marking as you go so there's a line for somebody to follow. That is a completely different thing from wandering, and your body will try to sell you wandering and call it walking out. And the fix for that first case is free, and it's the most important habit in this whole video. Tell somebody where you're going and when you'll be back. Every single time. Where you parked, which trail, what day and what hour you'll call. That 1-2-minute conversation is what turns staying put from a gamble into a plan. Because now there is a clock running somewhere with your name on it, and a starting point on a map, and staying put actually means something. Second honest thing, I am not search and rescue. I've never worn the vest. What I'm handing you is the same rule they teach, learned from old men who learned it the hard way. And if anything I ever say to you crosses up with what those people tell you, you listen to them and not to me. They do this for a living. I just camp. Third, I almost never tell anybody to buy or carry a specific thing. You've watched me long enough to know that. I sell nothing, I'm not naming a brand, and I don't care where you get it. But a whistle and one bright layer weigh next to nothing, and they belong in every pack that goes into these woods, every trip, even the short ones. That's me meaning it. Those two things are the difference between being a person lost in the timber and being a person who is findable. And there is a world of distance between the two. And fourth, they teach children to hug a tree. Find a tree, stay by it, blow the whistle, wait. And it works. It works so well that children get found who had no business being found. It's grown men who talk themselves out of it. The child does the right thing because nobody ever told him he ought to be able to handle it himself. All right, here's what nobody tells you, and here's what Hollis meant on that log. When somebody reports you missing, search and rescue does not come looking where you are. They can't. They don't know where you are. What they've got is your last known point, the trailhead, the truck, the last place somebody saw you. And from that point, they work outward in a circle. So the ground they have to cover isn't how far you walked. It's how far you walked, squared. Walk 1 mile from that point, and you could be anywhere inside a circle, a mile across in every direction. That's about 3 square miles of country. Walk 2 miles, and it is not twice as much. It's about 12 square miles. Walk 3, and it's about 28. 1 mile, 3 square miles. 2 miles, 12. 3 miles, 28. That's it. That's the arithmetic, and it never once negotiates. And a man on foot in rough country makes maybe a mile an hour. So every hour you spend walking, you are not walking toward help. You are multiplying the ground that help has to cover to find you. And you are doing it faster than any search party on this earth can cover it. 10 men on a hillside can work a few square miles in a day if the country's kind. You can outrun them before lunch. That's what Hollis said. A lost man walking is just making the country bigger. He wasn't being poetic. He was doing the math in his head, the way those old men did everything, without ever calling it math. And here's the second half of it, and this is the part that actually finishes people. You walk, and walking makes you sweat, even in the cold, especially in the cold, because you're wearing everything you own. That sweat soaks into your layers, and wet layers quit insulating. And now you're out of daylight, 4 miles from anywhere anybody is looking, in clothes that have stopped doing their job, and the cold has you. That is the chain. Lost, then walking, then wet, then cold, then done. And there is not one bear in it. So the old rule was the opposite of the instinct. And now you know why. When you don't know where you are, you stop. You stop while you've still got daylight and dry clothes and the sense to think clearly. And then you spend all that saved effort on being found instead of on getting further away. Stopping feels like giving up. Stopping is the rescue. It is the single most useful thing you will ever do out here, and it looks exactly like doing nothing. So let me put it in one breath. Everybody prepares for the wrong death, and the thing that gets people has no teeth. Stop the second you doubt. Sit 10 minutes and think before you move a foot. Don't drift downhill because it's easy. Make yourself findable. Open ground, bright color, white smoke, 3 of anything. Shelter and dry first, warm next, water after, food last. Stay where you are once you commit. And if you must move, leave an arrow. Tell somebody where you're going before you ever leave the house. And remember that every mile you walk Square's the ground they have to search, while your own sweat is soaking the only thing keeping you warm. Now do something for me down in the comments. Tell me if you've ever been properly turned around out there, not a little confused, but truly not knowing. And tell me what you did about it. And tell me this too, honest. Was the urge to keep walking as strong for you as it is for everybody else? Because I've never met a man who didn't feel it. I read every one of them. I'll be back next week. Thank you for sitting with me. Walk easy, and I'll see you down the trail.